Hey guys, this video is going to be about how to add up all the modifiers, how to create your to-hit roll that you need to meet with your 2 dice. So we're going to begin with the warrior data table. As you can see right above the battle mech, you have a gunnery skill of 3 and a piloting skill of 4 on this mech. We won't need to worry about the piloting skills in this video. The gunnery skill is what matters. So these skills are the typical skills of a veteran pilot. Your regular pilots are typically a 4 for gunnery and 5 for piloting skill. So the gunnery skill is your base to shoot starting point. With your piloting skill, that's how good of a pilot you have to avoid falling down in certain scenarios where you have damage to a leg actuator, a gyro, or get hit by so much damage that you have to roll to make sure your mech is still standing. That is where that is going to come into effect. But to hit the opposing target, you start with your gunnery skill of 3 in this video. Right now we are back to the modifier tables on the awesome sheet that you get in the intro box set. So right now we're going to look over at the terrain in the middle between the attacker and the target. Right now we have light woods, heavy woods, depth 1, depth 2 water, and partial cover. In this video we won't be doing anything with water, we'll just be focusing on light woods, heavy woods, and partial cover. So for light woods is going to give a target a +1 to their defensive modifier if the attacker is shooting through them. If the target is in light woods, they get that +1 as well. Heavy woods is +2, both if the attacker is shooting at a target through them or if the target is inside them. In depth 1 water, in depth 2 water, that is when a mech is submerged, either their legs or the entire chassis. So a battle mech is 2 levels high. So if you're in depth 1 water, only half of the mech is exposed above the water. So the +1 defensive modifier that the mech acquires is specific because the mech is only half visible. So it's slightly harder to hit. Now depth 2 water, the mech is completely submerged and mechs cannot shoot each other from underwater to on land and vice versa. Now partial cover, that is also in effect when standing behind a level 1 building or a level 1 mountain. And basically half of the mech is hidden, so the mech is slightly harder to hit. Plus if your shots go low, they will catch the dirt or the building and hit the building and not hurt the opposing mech. Next we're going to look over in the ranges. So for the ranges, we have short, medium, long range, and then a minimum range. So for short range, that's the prime distance to be shooting at an opposing target. It's pretty close, and some weapons reach out a little further. It just depends on what weapons you have. A snub-nosed PPC can reach out to 9 hexes for the short range. Gauss rifle at 7, heavy PPC at 6, and a regular PPC at 6 as well. Now when you're looking at medium range, that's when the target's getting a little smaller, a little further away, a little harder to hit. Finally, we have long range. Now, long range is when the target is as far away as your weapons can reach. It's going to be much harder to hit. So you see that short range doesn't affect your to hit roll at all. Medium makes it slightly harder. Long range, you have to add 4 to your number to hit. Now, those are the regular range brackets. Some weapons have a minimum range. So when we're looking at the Peacekeeper, which I'll bring the record sheet back up, you can see it has a heavy PPC. On the right side of the weapons and equipment inventory, you see the minimum range. Heavy PPC suffers from a 3 minimum range. So at 3 hexes out, a target is within minimum range. So 4 hexes out, 5 hexes out, and 6 hexes out are all the short range. So what happens when a target is within minimum range? All right, remember the number 3 for this specific weapon's minimum range. Now we see there's a formula to calculate minimum range. So we have the minimum range, which is 3. Let's pretend the target is 1 hex away. So we have a 3 minus 1. 3 minus 1 is 2. You add 2 to 1 and you have 3. So this 3 is added on to your to hit number that you need to roll 2d6 to make. So being really close to targets with minimum ranges is not such a good idea. Right now we are going to put some of these modifiers into effect. So to begin by calculating our to hit numbers, we start with the gunnery skill. The gunnery skill for the Peacekeeper is a 3. We can tell that the Peacekeeper walked because he has the 1 modifier behind him, so that is the one that we will be dealing with. We see that the Battlemaster moved between 5 and 6 hexes, so that is why he has a 2 in the front. So let's look at our base numbers just based on the max of the gunnery skill. You have a 3, plus a 1, plus a 2. 3 plus 1 plus 2, that's 6. So now we look in between the max. What's going on in between? We have 2 light woods. It's a straight line going right through the light woods. So, as we saw on the cardboard cutout, each light woods is worth an additional 1. So we have 3, 4, 5, 6, plus 1, plus 1. So 6 plus 1 is 7, plus 1 is 8. So all this pilot needs is an 8 to hit this target. But we can't forget about range. So let's look at the range. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's short range. For me, that was just instinctive knowing that distance. So 6 is actually that short range for the heavy PPC. This is the prime shot that he would get at this angle, shooting through the woods. So the Peacekeeper needs to roll an 8 to hit the Battlemaster. Now before we go further into different shots that could be taken in a game, we're going to talk about line of sight, actually being able to see the opposing mech. So the way this works with woods is 3 light woods block line of sight, or 1 light and 1 heavy block line of sight. So we saw in this combat scenario, there's only 2 light woods, so they can still see each other. Now if the scenario was like this, where we have a light and a heavy, they cannot see each other. In a scenario like this, we have a light, heavy, light. The mechs cannot see each other. But in the event that you have this scenario, each mech is inside of a light woods, but the terrain they are inside does not count against line of sight. So even though he's in a light woods on the other side of a heavy, he can still see him, same as the Battlemaster can still see the Peacekeeper. So as we can see, we have a light and a heavy. If he's sitting in the light, they can still shoot at each other. The Peacekeeper's not in any woods, so he wouldn't get a modifier for being in woods because he's on clear ground, but the Battlemaster would gain a modifier. We will start out with some simple shooting possibilities, and then we'll get a little more advanced. So from here, we can see that the Battlemaster is in a heavy woods. Okay, let's say the Battlemaster walked there. And the Peacekeeper jumped. So he's going to be up to 2 in the front and 3 in the back. 3 for jumping, 2 for 3 hexes covered, and 1 more for jumping in the first place. So, the way we play is we actually add the light or the woods and cover their inside to their modifier. So if the Battlemaster walked enough to get a 1, you add the 1 plus the 2 for the heavy woods. So you're up to 3. Remember, because light woods is a +1, heavy woods is a +2. So he's a total of 3 from any mech shooting at him. No matter where they would be at, that 3 would not change. So, let's see the shot we have here. We use Peacekeeper as the attacker once again. So we have a 3 for gunnery, plus a 3 for having jumped, plus a 3 for the defensive modifier of the Battlemaster. So 3 plus 3 plus 3 is 9. Now we look at the minimum range, 1, 2, 3. The Battlemaster is 4 hexes out. So for that heavy PPC, that's going to be a short range shot. The next scenario is the two battle mechs are fighting each other. They are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 hexes away. So we're going to look at the ranges. The range for the Peacekeeper for his heavy PPC, 3 minimum, 6 short, and 12 for medium. So between 6 and 12 hexes out, that's going to be a medium range shot. So in this scenario, the Peacekeeper has run and accumulated a 2 defensive modifier. The Battlemaster has walked and accumulated a 1 defensive modifier. Now they are 9 hexes away, so the heavy PPC would be a medium range shot. So let's just start adding up the numbers. We have the gunnery skill of 3, plus the attacker modifier of 2, plus the defensive modifier of 1. So 3 plus 2 is 5, plus 1 is 6. Now we need to look at range. Medium range is +2. So we got 3 plus 2 plus 1 plus 2 for the range. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it's another 8 shot to hit. Still, pretty good shot. Not the worst you could have. Now in this scenario, I'm going to show you a little trick that players pick up. Now, because you get a +2 going into heavy woods, if you look at the Peacekeeper, his defensive modifier is all the way up to a 4. So what has happened in this scenario is Peacekeeper used his jump jets, flew 3 hexes, landing into heavy woods. So you have 1 for the 3 hexes, 1 for the jump, and then 2 more for the heavy woods. 1 plus 1 is 2, plus 2 is 4. So the only downside to that is now he has that 3 working against him to make a shot. So we look at the hexes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. For the heavy PPC, it's going to be short range. The Battlemaster walked and only accumulated a 1 defensive modifier. So let's start adding things up. We have 3 for the gunnery, plus 3 for the jumping modifier. So up to 6, plus 1 for this light woods. So 7, 8. So that's an 8 for the shot. That's still a fairly decent shot. Now we have a much harder shot. So we'll leave the dice where they're at, and we can start adding this up. As we can see, the Battlemaster has run because of the 2 modifier in the back, and he covered enough to get a 2 modifier in the front, 5 to 6 hexes. And he is not in woods. So let's start adding things up. And also we gotta count the range to make sure we're in the right range bracket. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So 11, that is just under the 12 of the medium range. So we have a medium range shot. So let's start adding things up. We have a 3 for gunnery, 3 for the piloting, for the jumping piloting modifier. So we're at 6, 7, 8, 9 for range, 10 for this light woods, 11, 12. So now we've gone from the nice 8 all the way up to a 12. We need to roll a 12 on 2 dice in order to land that shot. As you can see now, we now have mountains on the board. We have a level 1 and a level 1, and then a level 1 and level 2 back here. As mentioned previously, battle mechs are 2 levels high. This is a level 1 mountain. So level 1 mountain is only going to cover about half of the Battlemaster. Most of just the legs. So partial cover is a +1. We do not normally add partial cover in with the defensive modifier. It's normally just added in because it only affects in certain directions. So for instance, if the Peacekeeper was here, not looking through the hex with the level 1, these two clear hexes, it would have no effect. The partial cover doesn't affect that angle of a shot. It only affects shots they travel directly through that hex. Now, partial cover is only available in this manner when a battle mech is adjacent to the hex. So in that hex, the Battlemaster receives the partial cover bonus. In this hex, it does not. So, for this scenario's purposes, the Peacekeeper ran, indicated by the 2 in the back, for 5 to 6 hexes, indicated by the 2 at the front, and the Battlemaster also ran by the 2 in the back, and ran 5 to 6 hexes based on the 2 in the front. So now we can add up what the to hit modifier is for the heavy PPC on the Peacekeeper. We'll start out with a 3 for the gunnery, 4-5 for having run, 6-7 for the defensive modifier, 8 for the partial cover. So we got the usual 8 shot to hit. So on 2 dice, the Peacekeeper needs to roll an 8 to hit this target. But even if the shot hits target, the to hit location could be the legs. As you can see, the legs would be behind the mountain. So if the location is a leg, the PPC just hits the mountain and nothing happens to the Battlemaster. So that massive shot really won't do anything except for slamming into a mountain. Now in this scenario, both mechs have partial cover. So now we're going to throw in that minimum range formula we had before. Minimum range minus target range plus 1. So let's start adding some numbers up. We can see that we're within minimum range as 3 hexes is the outside of minimum range. So the Peacekeeper is going to have to deal with that modifier. So let's just do the minimum range modifier now. So the minimum range is 3. The target is 2 hexes away. So 3 minus 2 is a 1. And then 1 plus that 1 is 2. So it's an extra 2 on top of the other modifiers. So we have 3 for the gunnery, 4-5, 6-7, 8 for the partial cover, 9-10 for that minimum range. So the Peacekeeper would have to make a 10 to land that shot. And even then, it may still hit the mountain. So that is a difficult shot right there. Now, as I mentioned before, battle mechs are 2 levels high. This is a level 2 mountain. What that means is the mountain is as high as the battle mech. So, since the battle mech cannot see through the mountain, these 2 mechs cannot shoot each other. There is no line of sight. So the next turn, they will have to somehow be able to see each other after their movement in order to shoot at each other. So in this video, I've gone through various possibilities for battle mechs shooting at each other. I can't cover all of them because there are many different ways for battle mechs to shoot each other in a single game. So from here, you just have to remember, you have to add your gunnery skill, your attacker modifier, your target's defensive modifier, range and terrain, and you get your end result. As you can see in all these examples, they were all under 12. And all of the numbers were between 1 and 6 that were added together. So, like I continue to say, as long as you add numbers between 1 and 6, you are good to go play this game. And then the more you use the cardboard cutout that has all the numbers on it, you'll wind up memorizing a ton of them very quickly. So you don't even need it for a lot of your shots in the game. Lots of simple addition, and you get to have a fun game in the process. I'll see you guys later.